Okay.
Hey guys, how's it going? Chit Verhellings here. Today we are gonna be watching the Matt Leaf interview. We have some breaks in between sections to talk about what Matt was covering, and Matt's also gonna be joining in the chat, hopefully. So if you've seen the shorter version of the interview that's in the archives, I'm gonna post a link in the chat. And well, this is our live stream project for the next little future. You can probably see Blake. Did I go to the right side?
Yep.
Yeah. Blake's here helping make this happen. And what else? If you're not a member of the channel, we got the Anamorphic cookbook going on, which is pretty cool. I'm hoping there are members of the channel in the chat soon that can attest to what I'm saying now. And if you're here, just like give us a like, click that like button. This is a very last minute video. We had another interview that had to be rescheduled, and I'm hoping to bring more people in to talk about gear, about anamorphics. Look at that join animation. So I want to talk to SimMod. I want to talk to Max about the Maxiscope and Nexiscope. I'm going to talk to a few other people. So if you got suggestions, also send them in the chat. Oh, there you go. First, how do you call it? Testimonial about the cookbook on the chat. And there's another episode coming up on Monday, and there's Suri versus Vaesen comparison. Suri versus Vaesen comparison coming up tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. So be sure to check that premiere. I'm going to be on the comments, on the chat, live chat, to talk to you and answer any questions about that too. These first 5 minutes always feel so long. It's so strange, guys. You don't even know, especially when you punch the mic. Oh, that's a whole new level of cool. Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys got any questions before we get started on this? And I guess about anything. I guess I can introduce Matt. Do I introduce Matt in the other thing?
You can introduce Matt here.
Yeah, it's a good idea to introduce Matt. Matt Leaf is a friend of mine who lives here in Vancouver. Matt's a director, cinematographer. He's worked with lots and lots of bands, local bands and big Canadian bands. He does a lot of music videos and he shoots a lot of anamorphic. He has his own DIY setup, but he also shoots with rented high cost gear. And in this interview, we're going to talk about his experience using the DIY gear and higher end anamorphics, as well as creative direction with what it entails for him to shoot scope. That's what this interview is mostly about, and I'm hoping he joins us here to address questions. There's some adventures in this that are just amazing, and I'm gonna try to post the links to the work that's being referenced in the interview on the chat, so you guys can go and check that out as well. Ole is asking if I can recommend a budget single focus anamorphic setup. Just go for Sure. It's the cheapest. At that price point, you can't get anything better. I think this is it.
Okay.
Did I cover all the bases? Let me check the last stream notes to see if I missed anything. No. Yeah, okay, so yeah, live streams are on Thursdays now, and interviews are what's up for the next little bit. So that's it. Here we go. So Matt, when did you get into anamorphics and why?
I got into Anamorphic, so it's kind of a long story, but I was like a really little kid, and I used to watch, everything was on VHS tapes. That's how old I am. And that would be watching a movie that I'd seen in the theater already, and like Blade Runner or something. I shouldn't have been watching that when I was 8, but you know, I would go to the theater. It was $1 matinee. You'd watch the movie, and then you'd come home and you'd watch the movie again on VHS, and it'd be like this crazy box where everything was moving around, and you're like, well, this looks nothing. Why did it look nothing like the movie in the theater? Like, why does this look nothing like it? 4:3 cropped in, and so older I got, I started realizing there's like a different kind of lens. That's like not just a regular lens. It's like it's doing something different. And so it wasn't until I got a little bit older and I watched Alien where I was like, oh shit, there's like it's an anamorphic lens. I don't know how I figured it out. I asked enough people enough questions. Somebody told me that I was like 13 or something. And then I saw Pulp Fiction. And I was like, oh, that's anamorphic too, isn't it? Okay. And I started thinking about it when I was really young. And then you know, I went to film school. They never had any stuff like that, and they kept telling me, "Oh, you know, you're never gonna get to use that stuff. It's too high up. It's too expensive. You know, you're never gonna do anything that is gonna need an anamorphic lens." And I remember being like, "F you," you know. And you know, I think it was when did I first get my hands on it? It was probably I was shooting a Headley video, which you know those guys are doing something that's you know different than I'm doing, but you know I was doing a Headley video and I remember just thinking like, well, the best thing for this video, we have the money and I want to do it, the best thing would be anamorphic. And you know I had been like looking into iskoramas already. This was probably like 2008, no 2012 or 13 or something, and I was like looking at you know, Iskorama, and I could never find one that I could afford. It's kind of like a problem everybody has. You know, you want the Iskorama, but you can't afford it. So I was on Craigslist one night. I remember it was like right after Christmas, probably like December 27th, and I saw this Koa show up on Craigslist, and it was like $1,000 or something. And I remember being like, well, that's insane. I would never pay $1,000 for, at the time, nobody would even pay $400 for a Kawa. And so I was like, there's no chance. And so 2 days go by, it's like the 29th and the thing drops to $450. And I was like, well, I mean, I asked the guy, I'm like, what's up with this lens? He's like, oh, it comes with red stand clamps. It comes with step-up rings. You know, it's nobody he said, nobody on the West Coast knows what this is. If I was in New York or Toronto, it would sell. I remember thinking, okay, sure. So it was like midnight or something. He's like, I'll sell it to you for $400 if you meet me right now. And I was like, it was pouring rain. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I met him at the SkyTrain. It was pouring rain. He's like, you have to meet me in my car. I was like, okay. So like I had a knife under my jacket. I'm like, this guy's probably going to rob me. And like, I get in his car. The dude's soaking wet. He pulls out this Kawa lens. It's like, I'm taking a look at it. It's like a monkey doing a math problem. I literally had no idea what I was looking at. I was like, okay, fine. Pitch him the money. Go back home. Realize I have no way to put it on my camera. And then I think it was like really shortly after that, I found your Instagram. It was probably about a week, not even a week after I found this thing. I found your Instagram, hovering lights on Instagram. And I remember being like, whoa, this guy's the coolest. He's like, you know, making a Kawa work and this kind of shit. So I like followed you right away. And then I don't know if I learned it from you, but I think I did. It's like the Helios 44-2 is like the lens you want to get to try this thing out. And you know, I'm pretty sure it was your channel or your Instagram that taught me about that. So like I grabbed the Helios and then I grabbed the adapter off of Craigslist and I put it on my 5D Mark II and like was taking perfect pictures pretty much right away. Like, I don't know, like I think I wanted the anamorphic shooting so bad that double focusing wasn't hard. I was like, oh, this is what you have to do. I talked to my friend in Poland. He had been doing it for a while. He's like, oh, no. Double focusing is what you have to do. It's fine. We all do it here. It's no problem. And I was like, okay, sure. So, yeah, anyway, so that's like the long story of how I got this thing and how I got into shooting my own anamorphic. I had rented them a few times for bigger videos, but this is my first one, and this is how I got into it.
On the note of you've tried other anamorphics, have you tried other adapters? Have you tried other cine lenses? I once met you in like a barber shop and you were shooting with Cooks.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we had the Cook Lomo lenses. They're made by Van Diemen. that was still before anybody had readily available variable diopters. So Van Diemen was making their own variable diopters out of Lord knows what. But that was, I don't even understand why they did it, but they take the Lomo part off, like the taking lens off, and then they put a Cook lens on, and then I don't even know if it makes it better or not, but those are really fun lenses to use, and they have a really kind of cool character, and they're essentially what we're doing here. It's a Franken lens. I mean, they're building a lens out of something that wasn't normally meant to go together. So it's like sort of similar to that. One thing about those Van Diemen variable diopters is those are rotating fronts, and like nobody ever like at the time, like you rent those lenses out for like $400 each. Nobody ever batted an eye at rotating fronts. Everyone's like, oh yeah, whatever, you know, they tape it on, you know, with gaff tape, and the whole thing is spinning around, you know, with the follow focus, and you know, it's kind of funny. But yeah, going back to your question, cine lenses that I've used, like we've rented, so the reason why I love the Kawa so much is because the first anamorphic lenses I ever used were cinema Kawas. They were the synchro focus cinema Kawas. Like they weren't even the PS Technics like revamped ones. They were like the old like cinema Kawa like synchro focus lenses. And I remember like just loving the look of the way the focus would breathe when you focus it, and all of that stuff was just amazing with those lenses. And the sharpness of those lenses, you don't really get it with a variable diopter. I don't feel like I feel like you get a sharper image unless you're shooting on the one that's longer than 75, then that lens is pretty bad. But whatever, the 40, the 50, and the 70 or 75, whatever it is, are really, really good. And the 40 is more distorted than anything you'll see in your life. It's like people say it's the worst. I think it's the best. Like I shot a whole video on the 40 before, no lens changes once, because I wanted to. We had other ones rented that just sat in the box all day, you know. But so yeah, me getting into cinema anamorphics was Kawa, and then we used Lomo round fronts a whole bunch, and I've used Uriscorama 36 before, Uriscorama 42 that you used to have. I used your BNH, the Rec Deluxe Hardcore DNA, the SLR Magic Rangefinder, FBD 16A right now. I don't know if I'm forgetting any. Yeah, I've got the Hypergonar Hi-Fi 2, which I didn't bring with me right now. It's in the other room, but not Hi-Fi 2. It's the
I
Stop
think it's
16.
the stop. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got Stop 16. Yeah, that's right. So got that for $100 right at the beginning of quarantine. Nobody was shipping or selling anything, and this guy's like, "I'll send it to you." And everyone was afraid when I got the package home. Like the mailman delivered it with like tongs, you know, like it was. And then opening it up, I had like a mask on and gloves. I was like, you know, opening this lens, and yeah, so I got that recently. Oh yeah, I had the Century 1.33. I had Rainier Renko 1.33. I sold both those lenses. I've rigged them all up and used all of them, and still back to the Kawa all the time. You know, even when we have like a video with budget, and it's like, okay, like, are we going to rent a cinema lens, or are we going to use this one and use that money on like something else, like props or makeup or whatever? So a lot of the time, you know, I've actually just used this lens on a bigger shoot, because it's either that or you can't hire somebody to do something else. So it's like, okay, we'll use my lens and we'll still get to use the red camera or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I think it's one of the Headley videos. They were like, there's a very wide shot uh,
Yeah,
with, I don't remember if it's a car or a kid on a bike.
the
And you're
car.
like, yeah, that's the 40 mil. It's so distorted. Everybody hated it, and it made it to the final cut.
Oh yeah, everyone hated it. The cinematographer was like, "You can't use this shot, man. You can't use it." Like if you look at that shot, it's like a rain, like the car's driving on a rainbow. And I'm like, no, that's the point of doing this. It's funny. It's like cool. Like nobody would ever want that. I love it. It's perfect. You know, like it was so comical. Just like visually, it was funny. Like I wanted it so bad. It was like so surreal, and not a look people are going for even now. But whatever. Like that's the whole point of anamorphic, is like it looks cool. Like when you first showed me your Lomo square fronts, like the first thing I thought was, well, everything's perfect about this. Like the 35 mil, like the distortion, everything is perfect. Like right away, I'm like, that's what I would want, you know, in a lens, right? So a lot of people like want the very clean thing, and then they get whatever, I think Cinelux lenses. But like, I always like how
I'm gonna try
anamorphic
something
is like
here.
dirty. Like, you know, you watch a movie like killing them softly or something. You're like,
That's
well,
not what I
they're
wanted to
trying to
do.
make it as like dirty as possible. Even Moonlight, like they're not shooting anything that's not wide open because it doesn't look as good. You know, it's like everything's quirky, it has character. Even Barry Jenkins, the director of Moonlight, would talk about that. He's like, the camera and the lens, like, it is the main character of the movie. That's like what he always said making that movie. It's the main character. And so it's like, it's true. Like if he wasn't shooting with the hawks wide open, it wouldn't look like that, right? So I always like that about Anamorphic, is like you get something that is like artistic and different and like not normal. Like, you know, I went from shooting Zeiss ZF2 lenses and everything was so perfect about those that I sold them. They were too perfect. And then even though people would make fun of me, I liked the Helios better than I liked my Zeiss lenses because of the character they delivered, right? So it's like, it was like I was starting to shoot things that looked different because I was finding lenses that made things that look different, right?
All right, this is going pretty well. Everybody got their questions answerable, I think. I've been tackling everything on the chat pretty good. It's weird, I hear myself. And Matt's here with us on the chat. I see people discussing like the price for Sirui lenses, and Spectre Sound Studios talking about loving the Ultrastar. There's nothing wrong with that. I got 2 of them, 3 of them, if you count the Cineluxes. And the Sirui lenses are super cheap. Like, it's very hard to explain that. Very hard to, first of all, deny how cheap those things are and be like, I don't want that because it's too cheap. I don't know. It's kind of the reason I'm doing this channel. Sab Scientist is asking another question. I've been chasing a Schneider Cinelux forever. Are those adaptable to Hasselblads? They should be, although you might need a long taking lens. You can check more in my review for the Cinelux. I've also modified them a bunch, so you can probably just search Cinelux in the channel and you'll find multiple results. Dunky is saying, I am happy that anamorphic lenses are becoming... Whoops. He deleted the message before I finished it. Look at Films 2 is asking, should I buy an Alexa or an FX6 and invest the difference in Bitcoin? I don't think I'm the right person to answer this question. You should invest everything in Bitcoin and just rent the Alexa or the FX6 when needed. Especially looking at how Bitcoins are going. We talked about it like 5 minutes before the stream. And Jim Moore, hello. I'm glad to see you here. Yeah, it's crazy how cheap Sirui is, and I hope they start making full frame lenses or 2 times or like just a stronger squeeze factor and cater to an even wider audience. Shoot me questions. Donkey, I was very curious about your question. Why did you take it back? Ole is asking, what do you think is the cheapest anamorphic setup that is 2 times? A DIY setup, you can probably get away with something around $1,000, but you're not gonna have a lot of coverage. You can probably get something that you like. It's just I'm being very picky about it. Wizard's asking if there's going to be a Sirui lens for full frame. I keep hearing those rumors. I haven't heard anything from Sirui proper, so I don't know. And Just Ice TV is asking, I have a sinker, but it's a pain to double focus pull. Yeah, you'll need to get either a single focus solution like a Rapido FVD or a Rectilux and work with that, or you just don't do rack focusing. That's a pretty good solution for everything. Sab Scientists, oh yeah, do you think you'll ever make a video on how shooting analog film with anamorphic is different to digital? That was one of the first things that Blake brought when he started to work on this stuff with me. It's like, we want to shoot some film and anamorphic and see how that is different, but we haven't gotten to it yet. There's been a lot going on. The cookbook being the main thing. So if you're not a member, check out the memberships. It's very cheap. We also make these videos all for free, so if you want to encourage us to keep showing up every Thursday and to have guests and all of that work, you can click on the super chat, which is like this money sign thing underneath, and you help us keep the channel up. You help me fund Blake's living situation, hopefully, and my own living situation, actually. So send super chats and I'll give you a shout out. Dunke, I accidentally deleted it. Aha, now we get to see it. Saying how I'm happy that these lenses are getting cheaper and cheaper, even though Brazilian taxes still make them very expensive. Yeah, Brazilian taxes make anything very expensive, man. That's tough. But they're definitely more affordable. I think affordable is one of those trick words where you're like, oh yeah, that's more affordable. It doesn't mean cheap, it just means cheaper than everything else. And Wizard, what did you think of the Zcam E2 F6? How do you compare to the A7S and S5? I don't have an A7S anymore, it's gone. The S5 is being used right now. No, this is the S1H. The F6 was pretty neat. It's very, very intuitive, and not having any autofocus and any photo menus to deal with simplifies the whole thing a lot. It was a great experience. I loved it. Thank you, Spectre Sound Studios. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And yeah, oh yeah, I can duck, and Blake's there. Ta-da-da. So Matt's tackling here. Oh yeah, the Bell and Howard, the longer lenses. Very true. Lens bouquet. Wow, this channel. Would you want to work as a lens tech? I don't think so. I think I like theory more than I like everything else. But no, I don't think I would want to work as a lens tech, although I would very much like to learn about lens tech processes. And Ankit is talking about the DIY setups with an RS2. Yes, it's on my list. Crane 3S is what Matt has been using, and we managed to rig up some pretty heavy stuff on it, which worked. It's always impressive. Hopefully we'll do a tutorial on that for the cookbook. And I think I covered all the questions, didn't I? All right, we're going back to the interview. So you would say that shooting anamorphic, how does it complement the way that you shoot? Like you say you like, because it makes things different. How does that help with the stories that you're telling?
People always say it makes things look like dreamy or surreal, but to me it's like, if you think about the way that your eyes are working in tandem, you're seeing like this really wide image that has a lot of focus fall off and a lot of distortion that you're not picking up on because your brain's fixing all that stuff for you. It's like, but when I look at stuff, I still kind of see all that crap around because I've been training myself for so long to like see the imperfections in lenses and things like that. So to me, when I put the anamorphic lens on the camera, it looks like how I would just see normal life. And if I put a spherical lens on the camera, it's like how a camera sees life. Like that's how I picture it. Like when I put the scope on the camera, I'm like, okay, this is how my eyes are doing it. When I put a spherical lens on it, I'm like, okay, that's like very clean and like what one eye would be doing, you know? It's like, it's not what two eyes are doing to me. So I always think that the anamorphic look just gives me like a very true to life field of view, and the artifacts that come with that are pretty natural to me. And so that's why I do it. Like I'm at the point now where I almost think that like I would almost want to shoot a documentary on anamorphic and narrative on spherical, because I feel like the documentary on anamorphic would look very much like how I would see things normally, and then spherical is how I would want to like tell a story. Maybe, I don't know, like it's been so good for music videos and everything that I just kind of did it for a long time. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, well, it is very organic to me and like what I experienced in my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. That's pretty great. So yeah, you shoot a lot of music videos, and you work with people from here and people not from here, meaning Vancouver. How would you define your type of shooter? Like, are you a director, cinematographer? Do you prefer to just be a director?
Director, cinematographer, but only because I get very good results for not much money that way. Like if like a lot of the bands, not like when I first started out, like $20,000 is a pretty good budget for a video that you get pretty often. And like I would always hire a cinematographer, and that would be like totally what you would do. But like the longer I've been doing this, the more I've been realizing that I can do more myself and get like a better product by doing more myself. And that's just because the budgets aren't there anymore. So for me, like being director and cinematographer isn't ideal at all. Like in fact, it's stressful to the point where like every time I go out and shoot, like I got a headache or like I'm stressing out super hard because I'm thinking about all this shit. But like I don't know, like I like it now because I've got the tools that I need to create the images that I want to create. I mean, like, you know, if I work with somebody like my friend, like whatever, you or Corey McGregor, and there's like somebody doing that specific job of cinematographer and like doing the lighting and like doing the focusing and doing all that shit, like I feel like it makes me free. It frees me up to like be more creative with direction. But when I have the camera and it's just me, the camera, and my scene, I think that I break away from what normally would be a really rigid shot list, and I start improvising a lot. Like, okay, you know, I had all this stuff planned out, but I'm telling this story visually. So like I start when I'm shooting, seeing different ways to be telling that story. And if you're just directing, you wouldn't be seeing those things. Like you'd just be seeing, okay, I got that shot. I for sure got that on my shot list. I got the right performance. Okay, done. But when you're also doing the camera, you're going to be seeing like 14 different ways to like kind of weave that narrative together visually while you're nurturing performance, and while you're doing everything, it becomes more natural. So it's kind of like a dude like Robert Rodriguez or like Steven Soderbergh would do the same thing. Like you see all these behind the scenes shots of Robert Rodriguez. He's got the steady cam on, man. Like the guy is operating every shot in that movie, you know, and he's like telling the gaffer where to put the lights and stuff like that, you know, while he's directing a scene. So it's kind of like, you know, I kind of always thought that he was like maybe not the best director, but the coolest director, where he always like made the coolest looking stuff because he was in charge of making it look like that. So I don't know. To me, I think that not having a budget has like helped me become more like a good director like him. I mean, he's better than I am, but you know, it's like makes me feel like, okay, like that's what he's doing, and I feel like I'm doing what my hero does, right? Like one of my heroes would do. And it's like it used to feel really stressful at first. Like I would always like miss shots on my shot list, or I wouldn't be paying attention to the actor because I'm paying attention to like, okay, I got my focus, you know, like that. But now all that stuff is like second nature. It's like I'm still in the moment with my actors and stuff like that, but it's like I'm also in control of every aspect visually, and it's a blessing and a curse, you know. Like at the end of the day, like if I wasn't also editing my stuff, I would be so terrified to hand it off to somebody. But since I'm editing everything, I'm like, well, whatever. Like it's I know exactly how it's gonna go. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like director, cinematographer, I'm struggling learning color all the time. I'm always trying to learn better color techniques, because that's really where you make or break your image. Is all right, you do all that work, and then like you can't just put it through Premiere unless you're really good at Premiere, which is really hard to do. And I don't know, it's like yeah, anyway, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but director, cinematographer, amateur colorist, pretty good editor.
So you're in full control of the visuals. Like that's exactly what it sounds. You see what you're getting. You see what you could be getting. That's the thing that I experience also when I'm doing cameras. Like the director usually has a very set view of what they want to shoot, and
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, let me try a frame here, and you tell me what you think. And then they're like, wow, I didn't think of that. And it's like, yeah, because you're looking at your plan and I'm looking at what's happening without worrying about the actors. Like it's so much more freedom.
Yeah, it is. But like, I don't know. I love being connected to the camera. Like I feel like, you know, filmmaking, like you look at Stanley Kubrick or somebody like that, he was doing the same thing too. Like he was also like, you know, literally, no, camera's here. This is the lens I want to have. You put the lens on the camera. Like this is what we're doing today. You know, so it's like, I feel like if you don't have that drive, like you're always going to be stuck to the page that you've shortlisted, and you know that could be really good, but it also is extremely limited creatively on the day, right? Like, you know, for sure, like it's like the amount of times, like especially now that I got my Crane 3S, like where I would have like this one shot in mind, but then I'm shooting it going, you know what if we also go over here and then we float it over like this and then we turn around like that, and suddenly these 3 shots you had in your shot list are just one shot.
Mm-hmm.
And that wouldn't happen if you weren't like directing and calling all the shots yourself, like, and doing all the work yourself. Like, you know, you'd be sitting there at your chair with your latte and your scarf, you know, like that, and your glasses and everything, and let's try another one, but I want you to think about your dead dog, you know, because you know, I want more emotion. You're sitting there, you're not connected to what's happening, right? Like if I'm shooting somebody, like, and I'm like this far away from somebody, I can be like, I can just like with my energy, I can even bring somebody to a point where I want that emotion to come out because we're like talking. I'm not sitting at my chair trying to derive something, right? And so that's something that I took a lot of work to actually get comfortable directing, doing that. Like, because, you know, like I said before, I'd be so focused on, oh, am I in focus? Or, you know, is my ISO right or whatever, you know, and it just takes a long time to get to that place where you're comfortable doing everything. And yeah, I mean, you know, even now, like I've written a feature film this quarantine, I would still want a DP to do it with me. Like I wouldn't want to do it all myself, but realistically, I could do it myself. I just wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
How does your gear choice allow you to be that connected to it? Like, is that a factor in being in the scene? How does your like equipment factor into that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing the vest. I have the Steadicam thing. I've got the 3S on the Steadicam thing. And like I've got a camera, like the GH5 with the speed booster on it. And it's small. I've got like this, oh, it's not here right now. I've got this Angel Bird 128 V90 card that I know will let me shoot all eye, 400 megabits a second. And I can just shoot that for as long as I want to, and I'm not going to run out. And so I've got a machine that it's not going to, like the battery lasts 3 hours in the GH5. So I've got a machine that I can literally just run and not have to ever worry about, like with the Red camera, I'm always like, okay, I got to hot swap the battery, you know, and we got to dump media every 10 minutes and all that shit. But like with a camera like this, like as much as I've felt limited, I've also felt completely liberated. And it's like been really easy for me to find the way that I like to set it up and then just let the camera be. And when I'm letting the camera be, I can be a better director, you know? So like, there's nothing about this setup right now that I would question if it's going to work or not. Like, I know that the Rapido 16A is going to work. I know that my Kawa, my blue and purple flaring Kawa is going to work incredibly. And ironically, I've got a Leica, but the Helios taking lens will still work better. It's a 44M, not a 44-2. It's way more solid. Like you have no wiggle or no play in that lens. And I just know that this is going to allow me to do whatever I want. Like, and if it's not allowing me to do whatever I want, it means I probably need a bigger production. You know, like when I was starting out, like I started out in broadcast camera work, and I remember I would be working at like the news or something, and I would come back, and then the news would be like, "Hey, we need to have a meeting with you." I'm like, "Oh, okay, what's up?" And then I'd be in a room with 5 different people all telling me, "You got to make your stuff look worse." Like, well, what are you talking about? It's looking way too good for the news. I'm like, I'm just turning on the camera. They're like, no, but so and so and so and so and so and so, none of these guys make it look like that. So you got to dumb it down. And I remember thinking, but the camera's just doing it. I'm not even doing anything. And so that's kind of how I feel about shooting in general. It's like I've always been a person who would, like, you know, you could walk in a room and you could figure out this huge lighting plan, or you could just move everything 10 feet and the lighting will still work without doing any lighting. So that's kind of how I approach a lot of my scenes. If I walk into a room, I'm like, okay, I could set up 3 1Ks and we could, you know, like a whatever out the window, a 1.8K HMI out the window. And, or I could just literally French reverse the whole room and spend like half an hour doing that. And then now everything's lit properly. And so that's kind of where I come from, is I don't necessarily need to always like, okay, start throwing sandbags down, start putting up lights. I would rather find what's happening and use what's happening. And that's kind of where I've developed my style, because like if I had to set up lights every single time, or if I had to block things out heavily every single time, I might get like 5 out of my 50 shots I want to get done in a day. You know, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question properly or not, but
Yeah, it's funny because I am the opposite. I come in and I'm like, okay, I gotta get a light there, I gotta get a light here, I gotta get a this and that, and it takes forever to set up. Uh, but then we can power through it. But I'm just way more stuck to whatever plan I have in advance. It would be great to free myself to just like, oh yeah, wait, if we flip this room around, this would work with way less effort.
yeah. Well, if you look at what Ochidomo does, like you look at what Tim does, it's like he doesn't even own a light.
Yeah.
You know that? Every single thing Tim puts on screen, he's never had a light. And you'd
Amazing.
never look at his stuff and think, oh, that needed lights, right?
Yeah, no,
Never.
his stuff is amazing.
Never. But you'd never think that. So it's like, that's another example. It's like, okay, well, Tim's doing the same thing, arguably better. Well, I mean, you know, it's different, but it's like, it's like what he's putting on camera doesn't need anything extra. Like, and same thing with like, you know, a bigger guy like Steven Soderbergh. Steven Soderbergh just puts the Promise Black on the camera and he goes with it. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. That looks good, man. I get a Promise Black, I put it on the camera, and yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's all you need. You know, it's like, sure, like, I mean, we have other friends of ours who would like look at that and like make fun of it, but I look at it and go, man, that looks pretty good. I mean, he's got Meryl Streep on camera right now without any lighting, like his new movie, for instance, like it's coming out on Netflix. Like, he didn't like that movie. He shot it on Red Komodo and he's just like, okay, this looks good. Okay, let's just open up the iris. There we go. That looks good. And it's like, you look at the behind the scenes, like, wow, man, he's like literally just doing that with the camera. And I just think that with the way technology is now, I mean, this camera is a little bit harder to do it with, but like you have a camera with like 14 or 15 stops of latitude, and yeah, you're doing it for sure, I think.
Okay. I'm going to address Sunny's question because it's pretty funny. Like, I'm having deja vu here. Yes, you have watched parts of this interview, especially if you're watching every video in the channel. We featured a 5-minute version, 10-minute version of this a couple weeks back, more than a couple. So you have seen some of this before. And CL Smooth is saying it's hard to focus one lens, then the attached anamorphic. Any tips? Practice. Lots of practice and lots of time. Like, Matt does it a lot, and I just can't. I lose my patience before I get there. And yeah, or you get a variable diopter. And the Power Dad, first of all, love this name. I'm hoping, yeah, Matt's answering that in the comments. He's saying low light doesn't really work on the GH5 without the Speed Booster XL. Even then, you're pushing it. I've had good results pushing ISO higher than in HLG, but due to the low noise floor. And yes, I second that. People shoot on reds all the time. I've worked on a bunch of red productions. And for noise on the GH5, I shot the feature I was shooting. A lot of stuff was at 3200 ISO, and it wasn't that terrible. So a couple of points that Matt touched in this last bit was the organic vibe of the image that anamorphics bring in, and a lot of that is due to optical imperfections as flares, aberrations, soft focus, astigmatism. All of those things technically make your image worse, but subjectively make your image better. And I think that's one of the favorite aspects of anamorphics for everyone watching this channel on a constant basis. And since you're still here watching this channel on a constant basis, hit that like button, please, before you go. That would be great. That helps this video get found, and it helps the channel to attract more audience. So like this video. Thank you very much. Yeah, so there's a shout out to Ichidomo, who does amazing stuff on the GH5. And I heard rumors he upgraded to something a little more intense. Anyway, I'll wait for his next video. And Yeah, Thomas is saying rock dual focus and you're gonna be fine. So I think these are all the questions. Up, Ole is asking, have you tried the Ace Ultra Anamorphic MC 2 times? Would you recommend this lens with vintage prime taking lenses? That's a tricky name because there's a bunch of Ace Ultra Anamorphics. Some are small and usable. Some are like huge and I would avoid it. So find a photo and look at the size. If it's the small one, then yes. The other aspect of what Matt talked about is being a director, cinematographer, or a director with a good eye for the cinematography aspects of a project and use what's happening in terms of lighting for the scene. That's something that I am not good at. It's definitely an aspect that I have to improve. Exercise more, just coming to a place and being like, oh yeah, if we place the action here or there, the lighting is going to work for us instead of setting up this huge light that we have here. I mean, it makes things look amazing, I'm not denying. And pushing forward by setting up more light. I always run out of lights before I want to. So that's something that I want to exercise more and try more. But yeah, shoot me your questions. I know Matt has cut a lot of GH5 with Alexa with no problems in some of his videos. And if you watch the shorter version of this interview, there's a lot of clips from Matt's work along with, I think, links in the description. I'm going to add links to the description of this one as well. Matt's work is amazing. It's mind-blowing, the stuff that he does with the GH5, and I shot with him a couple of times. Every time I'm blown away. It's like, wow, you really pulled this off. I'm like, I would never do this shot, but damn, this works. And there goes my, what is it called? Monetization for this video. Yeah, guys, hit up with questions. You are all very shy today. This is a very interesting experience. Usually there's so many questions, and today is a very quiet chat. We have less people, less viewers, I guess, due to the last minute nature of this live stream. I don't know. You mentioned your start in news. What would be your advice for someone starting into anamorphics today, right now?
Know that you really want it before you do it. Like, don't just do it because like you think it'll make you better, or like you think it's like a magic bullet, you know? That'd be my advice. Like, I look at like every commercial on TV, like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Canadian Tire, they're all shot anamorphic. And you watch a diaper commercial and it's shot anamorphic, and you know that's kind of what we're dealing with these days. Is no matter what commercial it's for, like adult diapers filmed freaking like anamorphic. So I'm kind of thinking like, if you're not using it as like a creative tool, it's not going to be worth it. Like, I think that it's sort of oversaturated these days with all of these commercials doing it. And I kind of feel like if you're not feeling creative using it, then you shouldn't have it. Like, it's not going to do you any good. Like, I like what you do with the anamorphaking, because I think for most people, that's the look that they want, and they're going to get it easier, and it's going to be a lot less hassle to do it that way. And it's still going to look like, arguably, if you're new, it's going to look better than if you had a scope, because you're not going to know really all of these things that can go wrong when shooting a scope, you know? And so I think anamorphaking is like 90% of people that haven't gotten into it yet, I would try that first. And then you try anamorphaking and you're obsessed with the bokeh, you love the flare you're getting. Maybe you get the Siru. I heard you pronounce it properly the other day. Maybe you get that lens, because that's, to me, like, there's never been a lens in history available like that before, where you just grab the lens, put it on your camera, and hey, look, I'm shooting anamorphic. It didn't exist before. It didn't exist, right? And so like everything before that was some kind of an adapter, or Vazen started doing it. But I would say that the Siriu is better initially than the Vazen, because like you're spending $800 on like the 35 mil lens, and that's gonna be awesome in my opinion if you haven't even used anamorphic before. It's gonna be killer. Like if you look at like any spherical lens will cost you the same price as a serial will cost you. So like it's a no-brainer to me that if you were brand new to it, you wouldn't try that first. The other thing I would recommend too is like, I mean, being in Vancouver, we're kind of lucky, but like renting, yeah, man, like rent stuff before you decide you even want to do it. Like just rent it. Like, and my methodology was always like, okay, I don't want to spend my own money. So I would wait till I had a shoot. And then I'd be like, hey, I can take this $400-$500 from the shoot and rent a lens or whatever. And so like, that's what we would do back in the day when I couldn't even afford it, or I didn't know what the Kawa yet. It's like, okay, well, we'll just rent whatever. And, so that would be the Kawa Cinema Prime or the Lomo round front. And, it was like, yeah, I learned pretty quick that I liked the Kawa better than the round front, and I didn't know why. And it was because of that synchro design. But that's kind of my advice, is like either anamorphic it first, and then you really like that, then rent something, and then you really like renting it. Okay, now look for something like this, I would say. Or you got the money and you have the Micro Four Thirds or whatever, get the Vazen. I know the new one's full frame, but it's like, that would be my next thing. Would be like looking into a lower price anamorphic that was still going to give you a bigger budget look, I guess. Like I don't like the Vazen 40, but I love the 28. Two completely different optical designs, and I think that's the reason. Like if the 40 was built like the 28, I think I would like the 40 as well. But yeah, like that's my advice, is like, just really like do your homework. Like your channel is like the number one resource, and like you're the number one reason why people are doing this. Like, so it's like, look at Cheeto's channel and like listen to what you say. Like, like that's what I would say. Like your anamorphic tutorials are like, that didn't exist when I was in film school, or else I would have been doing that in film school. It would have been awesome. And everything would have looked really cool, So I think that people could try that first.
Thank you. It would be awesome if people tried that first. There's a lot of resistance. It's funny. Everybody's like, it's not the real thing. I would rather spend way more money on this and then be dissatisfied with the results than trying it out for cheap.
Well, there's a lot of things that feel good that aren't the real thing. So take from that what you will.
You kind of answered this throughout multiple things, but what's your favorite thing about your rig? And what were like the key upgrades since you got the Koa? What were the key things that changed your shooting forever and that you wouldn't go back?
The favorite thing about my rig is the blue and purple Kawa. I didn't know how special this was until I started realizing everyone else had an amber Kawa or whatever color they had that was not blue and purple. So that this is the favorite part of my rig, is this lens here. Runner up to my favorite part of the rig is definitely my Crane 3S with the tilted nano follow focus and the Steadicam vest and arm I have. That, to me, that's been like the number one game-changing thing about my entire rig, is being able to fly anything on a gimbal. Like being able to fly like this, to me, like I'm holding it, making it look light, but I don't know, that's pretty heavy. And like being able to just like, we put your square front Lomo on the 3S and we could fly it, and it was no problem. Like we could have put 3 more square fronts on the rig. We could just stack them up and it would have been fine. And so I think that having, like, it's pretty new to me still, but having a Steadicam rig that can fly like a proper anamorphic and you don't even think about it has been the best thing ever. Like, so the favorite part of my rig is having an anamorphic camera I can just like float around has been huge. If I had to break it down, the Kawa that I found for $400 all those years ago that now would go for $2,000 or whatever has been the best purchase of my life. I've never made a better purchase before, and I would never ever sell this thing for any reason. So yeah, the best thing about my rig is just having the freedom to do whatever I want. With that being said, that 3S with the rigging and the body rigging and the vest and everything, it weighs like 40 pounds and it kind of sucks. But it's been like sucky freedom. Yeah, exactly. Like I have to like work out and things now. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I think that, you know, just having an anamorphic that works for me, that gives me the look that I want, has been like so monumental for my career. Like, and just being free as an artist too, because like now it's like I can just I've got so many different spherical lenses, so many different, you know, ways to make an image look a certain way, and I'm always coming back to the anamorphic, and it's because it's just, I don't know. It's like Marie Kondo says. Marie Kondo says it sparks joy. You know, it really does, and that's how I describe everything now. I'm like, well, everything that I've tried, I'm like, does it spark joy? Does it not spark joy? You know, and even when you showed me the different Vazen lenses, and I tried the 28, I'm like, this sparks joy. I tried the 40. This does not spark joy. You know, it's like this lens sparks joy.
Okay. So first of all, happy birthday to Ariana. And thanks for everybody that said her happy birthday. If you're enjoying this video and you want to continue watching this stuff, like this video. Send her happy birthday through likes, and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. I'm gonna answer Daniel Richardson's question about the Vazen lenses. I have reviews of all 4 of them. Plus, on the 65mm review, I also talk about the whole set as a whole. And this Friday at 6 a.m. PST, there's a Siri versus Vazen video coming up. So if you're not subscribed, you should definitely turn on the reminders, or however you call that bell symbol, so you can get notified as soon as that video is online. And so that's what I think of the Vazen lenses. Lord Scrumptious, love this word, I had to Google it, is asking, what do I think is the most unique flare color in anamorphics? Yellow is pretty unique, and red, actual red, is also pretty unique. I love those two, haven't seen them a lot. Would love to see more. Ole is asking about a Kowa Promenade 16D for $500. I would say that's too much, look for less. And Ankit is reinforcing that Sirui is a big player in terms of democratizing anamorphics, and that is absolutely true, which is why I'm such a big fan, even though I have some disagreements with like the changing squeeze factor and all of that. I understand that there's got to be compromise so you can cut the costs down and make the lenses actually affordable. So I'm sure they'll get better, and I'm sure we'll see different lenses from them as well. Who else asked questions here? Matt saying Sirui is amazing, and so is the 28mm Vazen. One thing that Matt brought up very early in the segment is anamorphic is overused, and I asked here what you guys think, and not necessarily overused, but misplaced was what Thomas said. Thomas or Tomas? I never know if you figure out how to write that. Anyway, it's misplaced. So we see a lot of advertising in anamorphic these days, a lot. And what's actually the point of that? Is it to make it more cinematic? Is it to make it more immersive? What's the deal? I'm curious as well. So I can never say anamorphic is overused. I'm like, if everybody can shoot everything in anamorphic, do it, and then we'll take it back. But while we're not there yet, I'm gonna say just shoot anamorphic if you can. Also, anamorfake it before you commit to buying a $500 lens. It costs next to nothing, and it's a lot of fun. You get to experience a more technical side of the lenses, and you just appreciate your gear more. I can't recommend it enough.
I think the reason why they probably do it is to look different. Do you remember when commercials started doing like ungraded commercials?
Oh my god, ungraded commercials was the worst.
But it was just about looking different and catching your eye, and I think it's a similar thing with anamorphic.
Yeah, so Blake has a very good point here with commercials being anamorphic and just looking different. So if enough commercials are shot in anamorphic, that's going to be the base look, and everybody's going to go back to shooting spherical, and we'll have our dreams. I see Christian has joined us. Hello and welcome. You're a little late to the party today, but better late than never. And oh yeah, Matt said the rainbow flares. I guess you can say that ironically because separation. But Ankit is asking about ungraded commercials. I'm sure we can find a reference and post it on the chat. It's just when everything was like low contrast, low saturation. Imagine if you shoot log and you edit and deliver that. David Sustaita is sharing more hardcore opinions that ungraded commercials are almost as bad as things in 60p. And yeah, like The Hobbit in 48p was atrocious, and it was not even 60. The last thing is I also need to work out. I need to get my arm strength up, not because I need to fly a Crane 3S, but just because I want to carry my camera for longer. Gemini Man, we tried to start watching it here. It was not at 120 and it was not in the theater, so we just quit because what's the point, right?
I would actually be so down to watch that movie in 120 because I have not seen any movie in 120. I think that would be like not necessarily good,
but an experience.
An experience.
Okay, so we might try doing Gemini Man just to be like sick to our stomachs. Yeah. Matt says he tried to watch it in 120 and was like really messed up. So I look forward to it in the theater.
In the theater?
I think so.
Damn.
Yeah, we had it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Ole is asking about a Schneider Cinelex for $200. You're getting a private consultation here, man. Yeah, $200 is a pretty decent price. I would watch my review on it and just do some more research to make sure that you know what you're getting into. Eddie White is saying, hey, that's your dad.
Yeah.
Your dad is saying, Blake's dad is saying he needs a mic. He definitely needs a mic. We'll get that sorted out. We can also add a camera pointed to you.
We could.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have to figure out how to share the responsibility of the switcher. Amazing. I love that families watch our live stream. I love it. Just Ice TV is asking, what anamorphic adapter do you prefer the most? The look, I mean. And 2x is pretty nice if I don't have to deal with the hassle of a variable diopter. So since everything that's 2x has to deal with that, I'm settling for an Iskorama in Max's rehousings. And I love that. Oh my god, remember Billy Lynn's long halftime something? No, but I will look it up. It was so awkward to watch. I hope not as awkward as this live stream or any of these live streams. And yeah, Matt saying that the 16H is amazing, but the Iskorama 36 is also pretty cool. Yeah, he had my Iskorama a couple times. All right, shall we go for the last stretch of this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. I'll see you guys in a bit. All right.
Well, the one thing we didn't cover was when I got into anamorphics, there wasn't a variable diopter available yet. And so, like, for instance, like when we became friends, we became friends on Instagram when you still lived in Brazil. And then I remember seeing you like posting things that looked like you're in Vancouver. I remember being like, hey, dude, are you in Vancouver? You're like, yeah. I was like, we should meet up. You're like, okay, sure. And then we met up in Blood Alley, and you like showed me your Iskorama 36 or whatever, and I think you brought your A7S or whatever you had at the time, and we were like just farting around in like Blood Alley, which to anybody who isn't from Vancouver should know is probably not where you go to fart around with lenses, but that's where we were hanging out. It's like a very gross place, you know. It's called Blood Alley for a reason, but we're hanging out in there, and I remember like I was like explaining to you how I learned how to double focus from like a quantum physics group on the internet. And it was this guy who had found a scope, and he had a camera and he had a lens, and he's like, hey, has anyone tried this before? He was like some scientist guy, and he was like explaining how to double focus properly. I would say that, you know, the journey from having having the lens without the variable diopter and learning how to double focus and you know, finding a way to make that work was like such great education into like learning how everything works with the anamorphic. Like, you know, before I got the 16A, you had given me the SLR Magic Rangefinder, which was like a blessing and a curse, where I was like, oh, great, I can single focus. Everything looks like shit. I can single focus. Everything looks like shit. And so you'd stop down to 5.6, like, yay, everything looks good. But now I'm losing that look that I had going on, you know? And so I found that double focusing would give always the best quality possible. And a lot of my videos that I have out now are double focused videos where, like, you know, I didn't even have the VD yet. And so I would say that learning how to double focus, like, kind of taught me the different styles of optical designs within cinema anamorphic lenses. Like, you know, because then you could take the idea of double focusing and apply that to your square front. Well, that's what it's doing. It's got this piece here and this piece here. There's a pin in the middle of it, and it's moving both, right? And same thing with the Promenade. It's moving both things, you know. And then you got other designs that have the counter rotating astigmat and all that crap, which is Panavision or whatever, and maybe Todd AO. I don't know. I know that they all kind of do something different at that point. But the one thing I would say though is double focusing kind of like got me to a place where I could appreciate the gear that I had, and like I could appreciate what went into a shoot, and it like taught me, like, I don't know, I like learned before any of this stuff happened. So like if you look at users now, like especially on the Facebook group, like the amount of people that have the gear, and you know, they always talk about, I would shoot something but my Rapido 16A isn't here yet or whatever. But it's like, well, you could still be shooting stuff now, right? And the double focus, what people don't realize is everything's easier when you're double focusing at the same time as being harder. So you've got, like right now, like if I took the VD off, I could be using a 72 mil diopter and it would be, there'd be no vignette, right? But even now, like I've got the 16A on here and I'm gonna slightly vignette here, and there's just certain things that change once you add the VD to your setup. And I don't know, I don't really know where I was going with that, but where we started was somewhere very different than where we are now with DIY anamorphic. And so I kind of feel like there's like so many options available to us now, like that we're able to literally have whatever we want. Like I could have sold all this stuff now and probably bought an Iscorama or probably bought a vase and lens, but I still like the Kawa that I found. I remember when I first met you, you told me that if the Kawa had a VD, it'd be better than the Iscorama. And I feel that way. I really do. I'm like, okay, well, it's essentially the same thing, but it's 2 times and it has more flavor. And so it's like I spent my whole life looking for an Iscorama. I found something that landed on my lap, and then now I've got something that you could argue is better. You know?
Very good points
Yeah,
there.
So that's kind of where I wanted to, those are topics I wanted to cover, because I was like, well, I mean, maybe strength of taking lens is a cool thing to talk about, but I'm also finding that a lot of that is myth. Like, you know, people are like, oh, it's going to be better if you have a Zeiss lens, or it's better if you have a Leica lens. And it might be sharper, but like I own those lenses and I'm still using my Helios.
As soon as you find something that works, it's done. You're happy. You don't have to keep tweaking once you have something that works.
No, you really don't. And like I put the Leica 60 on here and I shot some really good shots with it, but then I put the Helios 58 back on and I'm like, it still looks better. And I don't just know if that's because I like the taking lens, I like the image quality from it, I think it looks more artistic. I have no idea. All I know is that there's a clinical look to when I put the Zeiss lens on that I'm not into it. And then I put the Helios or the Jupiter on, I'm like, oh my God, that's what anamorphic looks like. I just don't have a better way to describe it. But that's definitely where I'm at these days for sure, is I own a Contact Zeiss and I own Leica Art. I'm still kind of like, well, the Helios is really bringing the vibe that I want it to bring. And the Jupiter brings the vibe I want it to bring. And so like, I don't know, this year is going to be a year where I start using the Leicas more and figure out if that works for me. But like, so far, this has been the anamorphic look that I wanted.
You've shown me through the years several things that looked amazing. So I don't know. I just remember a lot of stuff like the Pack AD video where I think you use the rangefinder to
Yeah,
destroy the image as a concept.
yeah.
And all those things that you shot with your Koa and even with the cine lenses that you enjoyed and you got something out of it.
There's one project where I use this lens double focused, and then we use those Cook Lomo Van Diemens in the same video. And everybody said when that video came out, like all like the techies, like all the guys at the rental shop were like, they're like, wait a second, that's not the Van Diemen Lomo. That looks way better than that. And they kept saying that the Kowa looked better than the Van Diemen Lomos looked. So I'll make sure to send you that video, because that video definitely like is a testament to what this can do. Because like I even thought that right away. I'm like editing the video. I'm like, oh, the Lomos look great, and then I get to the Kowa stuff. I'm like, looks way better. Like there's no contest right away. It looked way better.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people kind of say like, oh, these projection lenses aren't good for anything but projecting. I'm like, well, that's only if you're projecting negative energy, man, because these are incredible. And like, I've taken a really good look at the Prominar Anamorphics next to my DIY Prominar Anamorphic. Like it still says Prominar right on it. Like, and so like it has the same font as the Cinema Anamorphics and everything. It has the same everything, just different design. And when you look at the scope, the actual optical block, like of this Kowa next to Cinema Kowa, they don't look different at all. Like, I would even say, like, because the ones that I rented were blue and purple flaring Kowas, putting it next to this one, you could not tell a difference. If you're looking past the VD into the scope itself, you couldn't see an actual difference at all. And so the people that say, like, you need a cinema lens because you're not going to get cinema results are like, I think that those are the people that don't understand or have too much money to think for themselves, because you get so much out of this that you couldn't get better with the cinema version. The only thing better I like about the cinema version is that it's synchro focus and not VD. I have slight problems with VD still.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the virtual image it creates isn't as strong as the actual image that this creates. It's so negligible you can barely pick it apart. But to me, there's always a bit more magic when I have to focus both of these. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it throws that compression off. I have no idea. But yeah.
Yeah, no, and it makes sense because you've been using this lens for what, 6, almost 7 years now, and it's consistently the same. So you know exactly how it behaves, and you know where it's stronger. You know what is not that strong, what matches well and what doesn't. Like you've had lots of time with it to figure out what you really like about it.
The only thing that I would want to change about this lens is the flocking and the internal reflection. But you get the veiling glare a little bit. That's the only thing I would want to work on. The only thing I would want to improve on for this would be to flock the inside, which you've covered in your last video. But that's the only thing I would want to do with this. I did watch the new episode of Mandalorian last night, which was unbelievable. I do not want to create any spoilers here. I want to spoil it so bad, but
don't spoil it. I need to watch it later.
Seriously, if I said one word, it would break you. One word would break you right now. But you'll notice in that show that whatever scopes you're using, I'm not sure what they're using. I think they're Panavision, but there's veiling glare on those scopes. And even that movie, I think it's The Magician with Hugh Jackman. There's veiling glare on those scopes, and so it's like it exists. Annoying, but I've learned to love it anyway. But that's the only thing about this lens I pick apart was the flocking.
Yeah, I'm going to try to paint the inside of my Elmo 2 with that totally matte black paint. So if that works, theoretically, the construction's the same. But
yeah, it'll work. It'll definitely work.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no reason why it wouldn't.
You're still going to try it out. We need to paint something. We haven't done anything with it yet.
Yeah, we got to paint something.
Make sure it dries before you put the lens back together,
Yes.
Yeah. That's very true.
End up with like rainbows everywhere.
Yeah, I'll find a really, really bad looking scope and just matte black the whole thing. Just be like, here's a block of black scope.
Well, great. I mean, can't wait to see that video. Just dip it in paint. No more veiling glare.
It's done. No more flares, no more reflections, no more image.
Done.
This is the most expensive lens cap. Thank you so much. And it was a really cool conversation. I think we talked about stuff that I haven't heard before, and it was really great.
Well, perfect. Thank you. This was fun. It was like an hour long almost.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys.
All right. And I see our conversation here in the chat took off about taking lenses, and that's awesome. The Jupiter 9 is a super, super cool lens. I've had, I don't know, 20 of them by now, and they deliver amazing images. I can't recommend them enough. So, okay, people talking about the Prestige, and I wrote something down. Oh yeah, okay, I'll cover that in a second. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I see the animation here prompting me to talk about it. And if you're here and you've never been here before, there's a lot of anamorphic content in the channel. Nicholas is asking, even though I'm not very into anamorphic yet, just gotta say I love the effort you put in everything you do. Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. If you want to join the channel and become a member, you get more stuff too. So you'll see where most of the effort has been going. That's the Anamorphic cookbook. Veiling glare. Yeah, veiling glare, we talked a bit in the last stream when we were fixing veiling glare on the Schneider Cinelux. That was a cool 3-week experiment. And no coffee, such a sad name. Just building a whole German anamorphic set is Kugottingen. Carl Zeiss. Lucas taught me that. Taking lens. That's pretty good. My main problem with the contacts or the Zeiss taking lenses is they usually don't have a round aperture, so you get diamond shapes or like Zelda rupees. That's what happens with my contacts, at least. Okay. Ankit is saying I can only remember because I've been spending way too much time doing research for a Nolan video. Yeah, I've heard of that.
I've been doing a lot of that for our next video for members.
Oh yeah, so yeah, Blake's also been doing a lot for our next members video, which is chapter 5 of module 1 for the cookbook. And Nicholas is also asking, cadê os comentários brasileiros aqui? And I have no idea where they are. They just decided not to show up. Matt's saying, I hated Tenet. I haven't seen it yet, so I will eventually see it. All right, Ole is thanking for the private anamorphic lens recommendations. You're welcome. That's what you get by coming to a live stream. We talk about everything that's being discussed. Ankit enjoyed Tenet. Okay. And let me see if I missed anything else. Okay.
Has bad audio.
Tenet has bad audio. Blake's here saying facts. And No Coffee saying, oh, I don't use contact size. Size. I only go for the Carl Zeiss Jenna. Yeah, I don't know how to say Jenna. Luke is not here to correct me today. And greetings to Germany. There's a lot of people in Germany. I keep saying that every stream. I'm like, oh, more people from Germany. Well, it's not even like a good time zone there right now, is it? 9 p.m., something like that. Anyway, I think this is it. We're running over time here. It's 12:15. We gotta go get our hot drinks. It's sunny outside. Doesn't happen very often. We want to get out of here. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll see you again next week when we'll be talking with Max Swan from Exo Optic. And we're going to be talking about the Maxiscope, the Nexiscope, and the Scrummer housings. Thank you so much, Wizard. We're going to be using that right now to buy some coffee. So thanks everyone for joining us, and I'll see you next week. And stay tuned for tomorrow's video. It's a one-off time. One-off thing? One-off thing.
Bye.
See ya. I know he's making a video essay on it.
Oh, okay. Cool. I can't wait to see it.